Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins with a former police officer attending one of Joe's counseling sessions, where he opens up about his past crime. Later, he is released from jail and takes a taxi home. Upon arrival, he pays the driver and enters the house, where he helps his father in the kitchen. During their conversation, his father mentions that some of his belongings are downstairs. Curious, the ex-cop goes to the room, and begins to sift through his old things. Among them, Joe finds a stable bear packed away in a box and some old photographs. Intrigued by what he's discovered, he asks his father about his daughter, borrows his father's truck, and heads to the library for research. While at the library, he begins searching on a computer, catching the attention of the librarian, who observes him closely. Later, a news report catches Joe's eye with the headline, "Cop out and Joe pictures." This piques his curiosity even further. He decides to make a call from a nearby phone booth, and to his surprise, his daughter Melissa answers. As he talks to Melissa, his wife, Irma, unexpectedly joins the call. She questions how he got the number, and warns him that she can press charges against him for contacting their daughter. Tensions rise as the conversation unfolds, leaving Joe caught between his past and present, trying to navigate his way forward. Feeling distressed, he walks down the road, and seeks solace in a local bar, where he meets his friend Scotty. They share drinks, and Scotty offers his support, telling him to reach out if he needs anything, before leaving. While at the bar, a girl catches Joe's attention, and begins to flirt with him. Even after he leaves the bar, the girl persists and asks for a ride. Reluctantly, he agrees. As they drive, the girl attempts to seduce him in a dark, secluded area. Unmoved, he rejects her advances. Frustrated, the girl feigns an injury, calling for help. Suddenly, a man appears, opening the car door and attempting to pull Joe out. However, Joe fights back fiercely, taking down the man and anyone else who tries to intervene. The situation escalates, leading to a chaotic scuffle. Subsequently, Joe finds himself being interrogated at the police station, with his friend Officer Dan conducting the questioning. Things take a turn when Officer Phil enters the scene, informing Joe that criminal charges are being pressed against him for the incident. As the tension mounts, he expresses his desire to leave the past behind, and move forward. In response, Phil cryptically mentions like Billy Caldwell, hinting at a shared history or a similar situation involving someone from their past. The mention of this name leaves Joe with more questions than answers, deepening the mystery surrounding his current predicament. At night, Officer Dan seeks out Joe, and they engage in a conversation, while strolling along the quiet streets. The discussion takes a turn towards the mysterious figure of Billy Caldwell, and the enigmatic Officer Phil. Emotions escalate as Joe, overcome with frustration, raises his voice at Dan, accusing him of arranging the troubling events surrounding him. Their conversation halts abruptly as the sound of a passing car interrupts them, prompting a moment of tense silence. In this tense moment, Dan opens up about his past, revealing that he distanced himself from Phil years ago, which seems to have contributed to their current predicament. As the night wears on, he unveils a risky proposition to Joe. He discloses that he's entangled in corruption. He proposes a plan for Joe to reunite with his girlfriend, but it comes at a steep price. In exchange for a chance to see his girlfriend again, Dan asks Joe to carry out a dangerous task, assassinate mob boss Manny Vassi, who, on his deathbed, has found religion and may confess his crimes to Phil. Dan assures Joe that eliminating Vassi will not only solve his own problems, but also help him renegotiate his settlement terms with his ex-wife. The weight of this proposal hangs heavy on Joe, as he contemplates the dangerous path laid out before him. The next morning, he appears visibly troubled, as he emerges from his room and encounters his mother. Concerned, she inquires about his plans, leading to a heated exchange where emotions run high. Frustration boils over, and Joe abruptly leaves, feeling the weight of his decisions bearing down on him, uncertain of the path he should take. After some time, he returns, his mind seemingly made up. He takes the car keys, climbs into the truck, and sits behind the wheel, tears streaming down his face. In the midst of his emotional turmoil, a bell chimes from a nearby house, the home of Officer Phil. Gathering his courage, he arrives at Phil's doorstep, recounting the events of the previous night, and offering a heartfelt apology. He confides in Phil, revealing that Billy was once a dear friend. The conversation, though charged with emotion, ends with Joe storming out after a heated exchange. Seeking resolution, Joe heads to another house where Manny, the mob boss, lies in a sickly state. He confronts Manny, engaging in a tense conversation. The encounter takes an unexpected turn when, in a fit of frustration, Joe picks up a pillow, and playfully tries to hit Manny with it. Their interaction is interrupted by the arrival of Nurse Charlotte, who is taken aback by the chaotic scene. Joe introduces Manny to Charlotte, expressing gratitude for her care of his friend, though the situation remains tense. As they exit the house, they encounter Junior Vassie, Manny's son, waiting outside. Angered by Joe's presence, Junior and his associates start to assault him for daring to intrude. In the heat of the moment, Joe manages to break free from the attackers, leading to a chase through the streets. Desperate to escape, he runs towards his truck, but the pursuit is relentless. The situation escalates as the men catch up, resulting in the shattering of the truck's window amidst the chaos of the chase. With adrenaline coursing through his veins, Joe races against time, determined to evade his pursuers, and untangle himself from the dangerous web of intrigue and violence. In a bustling restaurant, Charlotte peacefully flips through a magazine, until Joe arrives, joining her at the table. Over a meal, they engage in conversation, interrupted abruptly by the unwelcome intrusion of Sergeant Tom, who behaves disrespectfully towards Joe. Despite the disturbance, Joe candidly expresses his fondness for Charlotte, setting the stage for a budding connection. Later, he finds himself seated alone at a bar, succumbing to the allure of drugs, to numb his troubles. Back at home, tensions rise as Joe's parents watch the news, only to be met with his return and his mother's disapproval of his use of the family vehicle. A heated argument ensues between mother and son, highlighting the strained dynamic within the family. The next day, Joe's troubled demeanor persists, until Charlotte arrives, offering a glimmer of solace. They share a meal together, during which she reciprocates his feelings, sparking a deeper bond between them. Their evening extends into a dance, allowing them to momentarily escape the turmoil surrounding them. Later at night, he finds himself at her home, where a moment of intimacy unfolds between them. Amidst their connection, questions linger as Joe notices medication in Charlotte's fridge. Their conversation takes a serious turn, as Joe confides in Charlotte about his past, revealing his time spent in jail, and her belief in second chances. The tranquility of their encounter is shattered when he receives a call from Dan, prompting him to confront the harsh reality of his circumstances. Dan coerces him into seeking information from Charlotte about Manny, resorting to threats against Joe's loved ones. Faced with impossible choices, Joe grapples with the weight of the demands. In a pivotal moment, Joe finds himself in Phil's room, grappling with a firearm, but ultimately unable to pull the trigger. The next morning, a shaken Joe seeks refuge in the familiar presence of his friend Scotty, desperately seeking assistance amidst the chaos. Upon returning from the police station, Joe is met with a shocking betrayal, as Dan uses a stun gun on him, triggering a physical reaction. Despite the betrayal, Joe pleads for a second chance, hinting at a newfound determination to change his fate. As he navigates the treacherous waters, he begins to strategize, reaching out to familiar faces like the bartender, and attempting to gather information from individuals like Tony, all in pursuit of a resolution to the tumultuous events that have consumed his life. In a twist of fate, Tony, seeking justice, meets with Charlotte, and provides Joe with crucial information. Joe decides to take matters into his own hands, setting up a camera in Phil's motel room, hoping to catch him in the act. He waits anxiously in a nearby room, ready for Phil's arrival. However, the plan takes a dark turn when Tony's boyfriend, Rooster, unexpectedly shows up, driven by jealousy. A violent confrontation erupts, leading to Rooster killing Tony, only to be met with retaliation from Phil, who ends up taking Rooster's life. Joe witnesses the chaos unfold, shocked by the sudden turn of events. As Phil leaves the scene, Joe rushes into the room to retrieve the camera, only to find it missing. Realizing that Phil has discovered and taken the incriminating evidence, he returns home in despair. Back at his parents' house, tensions escalate once again, culminating in a heated argument. The situation takes a terrifying turn when an unknown assailant opens fire, injuring his mother in the process. Joe, overwhelmed by guilt and fear, confides in Charlotte about the escalating chaos surrounding him. Charlotte, determined to protect him, takes matters into her own hands. Unbeknownst to Joe, she takes decisive action, and murders Vassie, stepping into the darkness to shield Joe from further harm. However, her actions do not go unnoticed. Junior, Vassie's son, catches Charlotte in the act, setting off a chain of events that plunges Joe into a nightmare. Kidnapped by Junior's thugs, Joe finds himself at the mercy of his captors. Denying any involvement in Vassie's death, he faces a chilling confrontation. The situation grows dire as Junior reveals his brutal torture of Charlotte, leaving Joe reeling with shock and horror. In a desperate bid for survival, Joe and his loyal friend Scotty fight back against them. The violent clash culminates in Joe discovering a shocking truth: Scotty was the one responsible for shooting his own mother. Betrayed and devastated, Joe is forced to make a heart-wrenching decision. He chooses to leave Scotty behind, wounded and dying, as he receives a chilling call from Dan. Dan informs Joe of Phil's death in a car accident, revealing a twisted irony in Phil's final moments. Phil had been distracted, watching the recording of his own violent confrontation with Rooster. Haunted by the ghosts of his past, Joe is consumed by a final act of desperation. Ransacking his parents' house in search of hidden money, he finds what he seeks, declaring his intent to deliver it to his children. However, his father intervenes, refusing to allow the self-destructive cycle to continue. In a tragic climax, Joe's father stabs him in a desperate bid to protect his son from himself. In his final moments, Joe takes one last action, wiping his father's fingerprints from the knife, and adding his own, a final act of sacrifice and redemption in a world consumed by darkness and violence. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.